there has to have been tens of thousands of people who have had knee surgeries that didn't produce a positive outcome for them.
Which were unnecessary.
In order for that data to then be organized and then for all of the surgeons to be told, hey guys, actually what we've been doing doesn't really work. Hey, what's up? Welcome to the Bulletproof podcast. It's Joey and JT here. Thought it would be cool to give you guys a bit of an update on my knee scenario. So for those who don't know, I copped a knee injury 5 months ago now. Interesting. I just had to look it up. I'm terrible with timelines.
The time goes by.
I feel like we started our podcast like 18 months ago. You're like, we're in like the 10th year. I'm like, oh, but yeah, I was like, wow, it's actually like 5 months ago that I did it. But so I'll summarize it, for those who aren't familiar. We've done a couple other episodes, but long weekend, no jiu-jitsu training for a few days, was doing some travel with family and stuff. And then I woke up one day, my knee was sore, which was very odd. It was typically like my good knee of the two, and was really sore. And it was sore for like 2 days. I'm like, my knee's sore, right? Just odd. And anyway, I went to training a couple of days later, and I knew going into the session, I'm like, I probably shouldn't be going to the session.
This is sketchy.
But I'm,
gotta get it.
Come on, man. We're all grapplers. What am I going to do? Look after myself? Shit.
I got these meniscuses, man. It's classic jiu-jitsu junkie.
And then I finished the session, and there was a point I remember where a really solid training partner, Jacob, had me in a calf slice attempt and was holding onto my foot and just like
yanking it.
And I'm like, we good. Anyway, and then I finished the session. I'm like, I've done myself a mischief for sure.
Of course.
And so anyway, knee was clicking and painful and swollen and all that. Got a scan. Had a meniscus tear, but had a few tears, old ones mostly. One of those old ones had been extended by a small amount, only a small amount, like a couple of millimeters. So that was interesting because the knee had always felt good, but I had existing meniscus tears. So there's the first learning, right? Is that you can have a bunch of shit technically wrong with the joint or a part of the body, but it doesn't actually affect your experience of training or whatever.
Life.
Yeah. So in any case, I was convinced I'd have to have surgery because the pain was such that like it was always sore. It would keep me up at night. I was having to use anti-inflammatories and shit. Blah, blah, blah. Spoke to a surgeon, went and saw Justin Lang, my knee guy. Surgeon said, let's not do surgery because the data shows us that your outcome won't be any different whether you do surgery or not.
Shock horror.
Which, and this is what we really zeroed in on that previous episode we did. You guys can go back and listen if you haven't heard it. But yeah, that was obviously huge. I couldn't understand that at the time because I'm like, but it's sore now and surely it's not going to change because this bit of tissue keeps getting caught in the joint.
Flapping around.
Yeah, so that's just going to remain a constant. Anyway, I did my rehab work and took some time off jiu-jitsu, kind of coincided well because there was some changes at the gym and stuff, which resulted in me training less. And if you know Joey, I'm always, I have...
if you know that guy who speaks in the third person, like Nicholas Merengali.
It's rest round season for Big Joey, right? Rest round crew, am I right?
Oh, dear.
But so anyway, I got, I don't know, maybe a couple of months of rehab. I'm like, the knee's actually feeling really good. And what the rehab, a lot of it was just kind of pushing the knee, like going back to like leg extensions and shit, which the first week I did them, they hurt a lot. But I was like, no, I'll keep going with this. And then second week, these feel better. Third week, wow, I'm getting stronger. Really exponential gains from that point onwards. After a couple of months, I was like, I hadn't squatted deep, right?
Right.
I hadn't bent my knee beyond 90 degrees.
Yeah.
Because the consensus was give the joint some time to settle down, get rid of the swelling and the pain. And, I was off the anti-inflammatories and stuff from pretty much, maybe I was using those for about a month after it happened. But it was like a day where I was like, I think I'm going to test my squat a little bit. And so I just sunk down into a squat and I'm like, this actually feels okay. And that's quite a big moment, right? Like for guys like us who like squat.
Are used to that.
Yeah, like that's just part of your normal
standard
movement.
procedure, yeah.
And then to avoid it and then to do it again, it was like, I was like, this feels so good. I think it makes me a bit depressed when I can't explore a range of motion like that.
Yeah, you're used to having that command of your own body.
Yeah.
And then having that taken away, it's like, shit, it's frustrating.
Yeah, it really is. But so anyway, I was like, oh, this is feeling pretty good. And so I started doing some loaded stuff. I jumped back into some split squats, like Bulgarian split squats and shit like that. I'm like, this is feeling good. I went back and saw Justin, my knee guy, EP down at Live Athletic in Caringbah here in Sydney. And he was like, man, yeah, like let's start pushing it a little bit. And the surgeon had said to me, you can do whatever you want. As long as it's not irritating it, just do whatever you want.
Wow.
And pretty much as soon as I got that green light from Justin, I was just like, I'm f***ing back.
I'm back,
Back.
Let's go.
And so now I'm fully exploring all of like the range of, I'm sitting in a bent Caesar, like a kneeling position.
Seen that, yes.
Flat Caesar, been practicing my Shogun movements.
Of course. The good samurai that you are.
Yeah, and it still clicks. It still clicks a bit. I still get, and it's kind of a bit off-putting when it does click. But those events are extremely rare, and there's no associated pain. It's just like odd, but it doesn't hurt. There's no swelling. I went back to jits the other week. I've been back at jits previously, so I've probably been sort of grappling again for, I guess, I was probably grappling again since
months,
maybe 8 weeks after doing it.
While, yeah.
Yeah, and it feels really good. And I just thought it would be cool to mention because meniscus injuries are so common.
Yes.
Like they're so common in jiu-jitsu. And the thing about them is that like there's a lot of variation in how you can injure them. You know, you got like the meniscus is a pretty big piece of tissue. It covers the whole sort of bottom side, the whole surface of the bottom bone. And it's like you can tear many different ways. Yeah, different angles, different levels of severity to the tear, and those will each like have a slightly different approach in your rehab.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like if you've ever known someone to get a bucket handle tear, that's like really painful, and surgical intervention, I believe, is the only option because your knee actually locks.
Just locks.
Yeah.
And you can't. It's a terrible thing.
Yeah, they sound pretty rough.
I feel that meniscus injuries in jiu-jitsu, people are more likely to have opt for surgery when they have a meniscus issue than a ligament issue. Like people can be missing ligaments, taping their knees up and rolling, and I'm not saying this is a good idea. I'm just saying this has been my experience with jiu-jitsu folks. But there's something about the pain in your knee, which is hard to quantify. Because like a ligament, like other than obviously PCL, ACL, but generally jiu-jitsu folks tend to have either an MCL, medial collateral, or LCL injury for various reasons.
Yep.
So you can point to it. You'd be like, oh, it hurts there. Oh, yeah, it's this. But with your meniscus, because it's in the knee, it's like, oh. And like you were saying before, it's kind of hard to quantify exactly what flared it up. You know, you might be fine one day rolling and then you just bend your knee a bit and you're like, oh shit, my knee's locked. Like what is going on there? It's a real unknown. And I think this is where it becomes a little bit scary because you might be doing something which isn't jiu-jitsu related. Maybe you're playing with your kid. You want to get down on the floor and whatever, do some blocks or Legos, and then you can't. Your leg locks up. You're like, the f*** am I doing with my life? And it's, you know what I mean?
Fucking Legos.
Fucking Legos, eh? And that's a very confronting thing because day-to-day life, you're not having this intense warm-up and intense amount of adrenaline that allows you to kind of get away with kind of joint compromisation. You know, day-to-day life, you're walking up and down stairs, you're like, my knee joint is aching. I cannot exist without drugs. Give me the surgery. But you have avoided that because of the situation with yours. Now, I was very surprised when the surgeon said, do not take the surgery. And this is based off some more recent research, is that right? That surgical outcomes are often on par with non-surgical outcomes for certain meniscus tears, right?
Yeah, he said if you'd come in probably 5 years ago, I would have said, let's go in there and clean it up. Because, you know, there's like a little flap and they know that's getting caught in the joint. So it's like, well, let's just shave that little flap off, yeah. But he said, yeah, the new science shows us that it doesn't change the outcome. The outcome, even if you have the surgery, is that you still have a sore knee for a period of time and potentially some clicking and shit.
And it settles down eventually.
Yeah, because and I guess it's because there's someone inside your fucking knee cutting shit and they're
that's
pulling
trauma.
and associated swelling and all that. That it's just like, well, if we just let the body kind of
do its thing.
Yeah. And you know what? I don't know if I mentioned this on the last time we spoke about it, but what's fascinating about that is in order for that surgeon to have arrived at that sort of opinion, there has to have been tens of thousands of people who have had knee surgeries that didn't produce a positive outcome for
Which were
them.
unnecessary.
In order for for that data to then be organized and then for all of the surgeons to be told, hey guys, actually, what we've been doing doesn't really work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I meet someone who is like, oh yeah, I got my meniscus done like 10 years ago. I'm like, thank you, brother. You know what I mean?
Thank you for your suffering.
All of your
Thank
pain
you
and
for
suffering
service.
and the hole in your bank account. I owe something to you, you know?
Yeah.
It's interesting to think about that from a medical standpoint because that people are just cannon fodder.
Well, it's tough, right? Because the science does update itself every kind of 10 to 20 years. I mean, you used to see people with hectic scars down the front of their kneecap from where they had knee surgery.
Yeah.
And now you just see little slits.
Yeah.
Keyhole. And then it evolves and goes further and further. And man, I think like even you were talking, we talked about this previously on an episode around the bracing strategy.
Yeah.
For the healing of ACLs, that's happening.
Yeah.
People are doing that.
Yeah.
And it's working.
Yeah.
So you're like non-invasive procedures to heal shit. That's what you want. Like I mean, I feel very fortunate that I've avoided major knee surgeries. Even though I have done plenty of trauma to my knees. Look, I think for many people out there, and I always advocate for avoiding surgery if you can, like, because unfortunately, I feel the misconception about surgery is that I get the surgery and I come back the same, if not better than I was before.
Yeah.
This is not necessarily the case. You will maybe come back better than how you're working now, but pretty much across the board, every major surgery, whether it's joint, organ, anything, you're always going to be just a little bit less. Just even if it's a couple percentage points, because you are gradually breaking down your body from its original natural state. And that's trauma and that's taxing.
Yeah.
And that's tough. It's tough to admit that with our current medical research and science in all its glory, we are gradually ourselves to a lesser or greater extent.
Do you find you get thirsty at training? I do. I do all the time. I'm a sweaty human and I need to hydrate. Now, the biggest problem is by the time you're thirsty, it's a little bit late. You need to hydrate. And that's why we got Sodi. Sodi is sponsoring the show. We've got all the colors of the rainbow. Great flavors here. We've got salty citrus, salty pineapple, salty berry, and my favorite, salty grapefruit. And they will be releasing 2 new mystery flavors soon. So why do we need this? It's going to prevent our muscle cramps. It's going to help our energy delivery. And it's also going to mean you're less tired, which is an advantage when you're training. If you want to maximize your jiu-jitsu and feel good when you're rolling, you need to get Sodi. And when you purchase, enter the code Bulletproof20 at checkout for 20% off. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I do think that you'd often, like, for a lot of people in that sort of cycle of, or who are in that circuit of like injury specialist, surgery, surgeon,
Drugs.
you know, but yeah, it's like
All of it.
no one tells you like, look, like, yeah, we're going to be able to fix the problem, but it is going to create some different, not
Issues.
like, yeah, think like small challenges.
Byproducts.
And not because it's all optimistic. It's like, we can totally fix that. Here's how we do it. Done it to 1,000 other people. It's going to be f***ing great. And you're like, oh my God, let's do it.
I'm sold.
Yeah. And you know, yeah, they do fix it, but it changes shit, right? I think, and it's even for me who you would, I guess I'd say like have a pretty well sort of evolved view around this stuff. I kind of fell for that when I had my ACL
you're
recon,
shocked.
where I was just like, oh my God, man, like this knee kind of feels like shit. And it's been 2 years since. And then I talk to people and they're like, yeah, it's kind of what it's like. And you're like, no one told me.
No, and you're someone who is working on it.
Yeah, like I
You've
should
done the rehab.
Yeah, I should know. Yeah.
But it's not even you should. If
Right.
we compare you to just an everyday person, they're not in the gym every day. They're not craving full knee flexion. They're just trying to get up and down stairs.
They don't get depressed, crawl up in a ball when they can't do a squat.
No, they're just going to have a couple beers. As long as they can fit into the chair at KFC, they're stoked. Like people don't give a shit, right?
Family bucket over here.
But that's the tough thing. It's the reality is we do this thing, jiu-jitsu, we love it, but what we don't appreciate is there is these hidden costs. And those hidden costs have lingering debt, like a credit card. So as somebody who's had to pay off a credit card, it takes years. And so if you could avoid it in the first place, great. But sometimes day-to-day life, you get stretched and you've got to find it somewhere, right? So whether it's your body or your balance, your bank balance, you're just trying to get through life.
Because you're always buying those premium sausages.
You, mate, that's what it is when you're trying to be a big boy. Nah, it's when you want to take trips to Brazil, but you've only got a part-time personal trainer budget.
Yeah.
And the visa office requires a credit card. You're like, well, what can it hurt? $5,000 limit? Acai's on me. But nah, it's a huge thing, isn't it?
I got to temper this sort of episode 2 with just the reality is, like, I had a bunch of people get in touch with me. The reason I want to talk about this, a lot of people have reached out about it, right? Because this shit's so common in jits, as we said. And I had a lot of people reach out to me when I shared that kind of initial, like the thing about not having the surgery and taking a more conservative approach. And and I had people who were like, I had a few people who were like, I did that and I copped it and I did 12 months of my knee being sore and no surgery. And then I got the surgery and my knee feels great.
Oh, yeah.
And so, there is, like, that's also the outcome
flip side.
For some folks. And so, if you've got a knee thing and you're hearing this and you're like, yeah, Joey, I'm not getting surgery. I'm not saying necessarily that's what you should do. I would just share this so that you can have a more like rounded kind of view of things. By far, the best thing you can do is hook up with someone who knows about knees. My guy that I mentioned, Justin Lang here in Sydney, I send so many people to him. A lot of people contact me after these episodes and I always just go talk to Justin. But Justin put me onto the surgeon, right?
Right.
So there was an upgrade in me seeing Justin. And then the upgrade on that upgrade was, hey, here's the surgeon you should see.
Yeah. And,
that's just like, we always say it, right? Having good people that can give you good advice is key. It's everything.
Yeah.
In this scenario. Last little story. So Justin trains Paul Gallen.
Yes.
Or Paul Gallen trains him. They're mates.
Gallen's a beast, yeah.
Yeah, and so Gallen's brother's a jiu-jitsu guy, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's got a brother. I saw him compete at a recent Subversion.
Right.
He's a bit of a showman.
All right.
Quite entertaining. But he said that Gallen injured his knee. So Gallen, for those who don't know, Paul Gallen
is a legend.
A legend of the Australian, like of
NRL.
rugby league, which is probably our one of the tougher. They're all tough, right? Our codes of football.
No. Physically,
it's
just
demanding.
Running head on, boosh.
Yeah,
all the time.
Yeah,
and he's had a very long career.
And he comes from an era of just like
rough.
Yeah, brutal.
And you could fight back.
And I think did he captain New South Wales? He represented in Origin many times. Okay, yeah. So he's like considered elite of that world, and never had a knee injury, never had a knee surgery through all of those years.
Wow.
Even had a boxing career.
He did.
That he went to after NRL, no knee injury, and then Justin was saying he was riding his e-bike or something with his family and he just stacked it a little bit and tore his meniscus. Oh. And you look at the guy, right? He looks like the kind of guy that's been to battle for 30 odd years continuous. But so he went to the same surgeon and the surgeon told him, don't do the surgery, just give it time. Because he comes from that sports realm where it's like, no, I need to get back out on the pitch.
Yes.
Get me out in the field kind of thing. He went and got the surgery, and then apparently it's still sore. So I mean, and I don't know if it is right now, but at the time that I heard the story, I was like, yeah, no, he doesn't feel any better for having had the surgery.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing. It's a kind of choose your own adventure. But I guess the positive thing to come out of this is there is hope in terms of like non-surgical approaches to healing your knee, and you are a living example of that.
A living example of that.
And meniscus Jesus over here.
Right? I'm going to cut off small little pieces and send it out to be grown in labs around the world.
As to,
they'll do it.
auto regenerative knee tissues.
But to you guys, if you're hearing this and you're like, oh man, I need some advice, just get in touch with us. Hit us up on the Instagram. People slide into the DMs all the time, and as much as we can give time to it, we're always happy to offer a response. And so if you feel like you're if you want our opinion, which it is just our opinion,
That's right.
slide on in, and I'll give you that opinion.
Yeah, and then also we can connect you with folks smarter than us, and then they might then be able to connect you with a colleague or an associate closer to you. So if you're on the other side of the planet, there's every chance they may know somebody who is there. So then we can then point you in the direction of the next smartest, better educated opinion.
Yeah, and I tell you, here's the final thing: the upside of busting up your knee is the rehab and like hitting those leg extensions and hamstring curls. I've been given the green light to just hammer away on the machines, and I'm enjoying it.
Oh yeah, it's pumping those quads.
Quads are back, baby.
God's reps.
Back.
You.